What's going on? Welcome to the Leaderboard, where we talk about what's going on in the world of esports. I'm Meg Turney, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Jared Wynne.
That's me.
That's you.
Yeah.
So exciting. The League Championship Series has reached the conclusion of its latest seasons in both North America and Europe. The North American final saw yet another rematch between Cloud9 and defending champions team SoloMid, with TSM winning 3 games in a row after losing the first to claim a second consecutive title. Little clap for you. In Europe, Fnatic managed to edge Unicorns of Love out in a roller coaster 5-game series that kept fans guessing. So let's start with North America. TSM, Cloud9.
Yeah, so TSM, they did an excellent job in this series. They look like clearly the best team in the West. They do. You got Bjergsen in the mid lane. You got Santorin doing better in the jungle. Not that he was doing bad to begin with. Dyrus, the rock-solid player in the top lane. This was like an inevitability, this series. And then, of course, I should mention Wildturn Lustboy in the bottom lane, especially Lustboy, who's played excellent League of Legends as of late. Cloud9 took the first game, but TSM had spoken about previously how losing the first game was not a big surprise to them. They lost the first game against Team Impulse, and they came back and won 3 in a row there in the semifinal. Did the same thing here against Cloud9, and they never really seemed to be in trouble or in doubt. The result was never in doubt, which is a funny thing for Cloud9 because they were for a while such a dominant team in North America, and now that they're kind of not. Just because TSM has surpassed them. They're just so good. I think Cloud9 has kind of reached their cap on what they can do with this current lineup. As currently composed, Cloud9 has reached their ceiling. They've elevated, I think, the level of play in North America by forcing teams like TSM to get better, to improve every split. Now TSM has improved beyond the level Cloud9's at, so Cloud9 has to think, okay, do we make a change? They have Incarnation available for the mid lane to replace Hai. Hai is an easy target here, but he was obviously at a disadvantage against Bjergsen. Now, Bjergsen being potentially the best mid laner in the West, one of the best in the world, that's, of course Hai was at a disadvantage against him, but he's been an easy target for fans and analysts for some time now because his play has not always been stellar as of late. Elimination actually had a really poor series against TSM in the bottom line of support, and when you combine that with Lustboy playing so well, that's a big gap for Cloud9 to come back from. I think they are what we thought they were, sneaky and Meteos, great players. Cloud9 kind of built around them. I think Balls actually can play at a high level still, but I think Elimination and Hai clearly show that they're below the level that Cloud9 wants to be at, which is best in the region, potentially a worldwide and international contender, which is what TSM now is. So C9 has to make a decision. Do we make a change, or do we stand pat? Because even if they stand pat, they're still like a top 3 team in the region. But
right, they're still doing really well. But
yeah.
Would you like to see them replace those 2 players, or?
Well, the standard for them is higher than for most teams, And I think if you want to be more than just a top 3 team in the region, and going into next year, that probably won't even hold true if they stay as currently composed. They need to make a change. That could go bad. They could add an Incarnation, for example, to the mid lane and they have it turn out poorly, but I think you have to do something different. TSM has not been afraid to make changes. Of course, in TSM's case, they bring in great players, so it's a good thing to change. I think you just have to make the right change, and we'll see if Cloud9 can do that. But TSM, all credit to them. They are clearly the best team in the region and in the West at large. They just are playing excellent League of Legends.
All right, so let's talk about in the European League. We've got Fnatic and Unicorns of Love. Did not go as smoothly as it did in the North American series.
It's a bit of a rocky series. For purists of the game, a little bit frustrating to watch, I'm sure. Neither team really seemed prepared to win. Actually, it was more like, no, you take it. No, you take it. No, yeah, it was a fun series to watch, but just a very rocky series. As I said, Fnatic ultimately coming out on top. Unicorns of Love at a bit of a crossroads here because their style of play is good for surprising opponents, but it's not very good for being consistent. They were up and down the entire split. They get to the playoffs, still up and down, but managing to come out on top over and over again. It seems strange to criticize them because they came within 1 game of winning the European split, but maybe that's more about the region kind of being in flux now than it is about just Unicorns being that great of a team. I do think they're very good. I don't want to take anything away from them. I love watching them play. They're my favorite team to watch, in fact, in Europe because they're so unafraid to try new things and to push new strategies. But I think their base game plan and their ability to solidify a lead, especially, we saw in the last game of the series, they had an early lead they couldn't solidify, needs work. And the roster might need to be changed to further that goal. Whether that's going to happen, I'm not sure because they seem pretty satisfied with what they did. They were happy to be in the top half of the standings earlier in the year. They were happy to get second place here to make the playoffs before that. They're just so happy all the time. It makes sense, right? Being Unicorns of Love.
Absolutely.
Of course they're happy all the time.
You don't want to be angry.
No, you don't want to be angry when you have a unicorn on your chest. But, at a certain point you have to decide, okay, are we just going to have a happy, fun, good time in the LCS or are we going to try to win the split? Again, a funny thing to say considering they were within 1 game of winning the split. But you do have to make the consideration at this point. And Fnatic, great job by them coming from rebuilding the team from almost the ground up to winning the split. That's not a bad season for them.
Not a bad season.
Not a bad start to the year. Yeah, really good play from them. We'll see if they can carry it over internationally. That's a big question for them.
The mid-season invitational, damn you League of Legends, you're everywhere, is coming up next month, and both of these teams will be attending. Maybe they'll just change games for it. What are their odds against the international competition, Jared?
Change games to what?
Just change it to anything else.
Return to Castle Wolfenstein?
Anything else.
Or Wolfenstein?
Aktum! I remember that one. I was
oh, right, yeah.
Really?
That's German.
Thank you.
That's
Also, though they yell at you and they're coming at you.
Right. Other German words do you know?
I know Brot and Wasser.
Schnell?
Yeah, well, yeah, I do know that,
Can you count?
No.
Nobody cares if you can count in German. Yeah, so the MSI, new event, interesting event, more international play for us to have this involved in the mix. TSM going there, you have to feel good about their chances. They just won the IEM World Championship, so certainly they're a contender at MSI. Fnatic, I'm not sure about them quite so much. I think they need the experience on the big stage like that. I think it's a good opportunity for them to prepare for Worlds later on this year, assuming they make Worlds. I think they have a very good shot to do so. So it's good for both teams. HQ Esports Club also qualified. I don't think we should overlook the Taiwanese teams. Flash Wolves played quite well in Poland. They could play, well, they're not going to be here, but the HQ could play quite well here. Certainly, I think we have to look at the Chinese region, the LPL, as a big potential source for a contender here. Given what happened to World Elite in Poland, you have my Edward Gaming, LGD Gaming trying to come in here. I think both those teams would be big threats to win it all. And of course, you can't overlook the Korean sides like GE Tigers, CJ Entus, SK Telecom, T1, all going to be solid threats. It'll be fun to see, but it's so limited, the number of games we get to see internationally, that doesn't really mean we can't say a whole lot for sure from the results.
Right, like who's the best team in the world?
Yeah, it's easy to say, oh, well, this team won a few games this weekend. I guess they're the best team in the world. It doesn't really work that way. We get to see an entire split of play within the regions. So having one weekend of play doesn't really tell us for sure who's the best and by what margin. It's just who played best that weekend, which does mean a lot, obviously. That's how these things go. But it's worth keeping in mind.
Do you have a favorite?
I have a favorite.
Right, like do you have a favorite to win it?
An analytical favorite.
Yes.
As an analyst.
Yes.
Well, the field is not set in stone just yet, so I can't really say for sure. I do think, however, that TSM is a legitimate contender on the international stage now, and going forward as currently composed.
How analytical of you. All right, we're moving on. Are you ready to move on?
I was so ready.
Everyone's so ready.
I was ready before that, honestly. I was ready.
We're all ready. All right, the 18th ESEA season concluded this weekend with a Counter-Strike final in Dallas, Texas. Woohoo! 4 teams from Europe and 4 from North America were in attendance.
Woo, Dallas.
Virtus.pro defeated the world's #1 team in Fnatic in the final, but the bigger story may have been the failure of the local teams to take a single game off their European counterparts. What happened to our once glorious nation?
Well, the glory didn't start in Dallas.
No,
didn't come from there. Yeah, tough showing for the American teams in attendance. It's funny because just a year ago, the ESEA Finals, where we had an all-American final in Counter-Strike, we had iBuyPower versus Complexity. So has the region actually fallen over the course of a year? You thought it might be catching up after the whole CGS debacle years ago. It's a tough thing. I think certainly the banning of the iBuyPower players didn't help. And that then put even players who were not banned, like Hiko and Skedoodle, it put them in flex. What are they going to do? And they're some of the best players in the region. So it certainly hurt the region in that regard. I think you just have a weaker infrastructure here is what you have. I don't just think that is what you have, as a matter of fact. The reason, for example, teams outside Korea can catch up in League of Legends, for example, is because the infrastructure outside of Korea is building up. So you have better coaching, better practice facilities, better everything around the players, allowing the teams to become better. Teams don't just become better in certain regions because they're born with a gene that allows them to play Counter-Strike or League of Legends better.
They're genetically superior.
Yeah, not quite the master esports race. No, there's no such thing. It's just the facilities and the infrastructure around you allows you to better reach your peak performance, if you will. And in Europe, you have a great place to play Counter-Strike because you're surrounded by great players and great teams and good coaches. Now, you have coaching as a real thing with the top European teams. Still not so much anywhere else in the world. That's why the European region is the strongest. And that's why the teams from that region are most consistent because they're always practicing against the best teams. Whereas a team like Cloud9, for example, in North America, they consider moving to Europe because they want that practice environment. Here, they're practicing against a handful of, teams that can maybe win a couple matches, but not really compete at the highest level consistently. And of course, Cloud9 crash out here and play very poorly, so that's a problem for them. Maybe they need to make changes before they go to Europe. That's a whole other issue. Virtus Pro, the people who actually won the event, a good tournament for them. They won 2 out of 3 events now after having gone since August, I believe, without winning anything of note. So beating Fnatic in the final, a great win for them. I still think they're not going to go on a tear. Virtus Pro is just a naturally inconsistent team relative to winning tournaments. You know, as inconsistent as you can be with still winning 2 out of 3 tournaments you attend in the space of a month. They just are a very volatile team. They argue a lot and fight and yell and scream, and
that's what makes them so great. For
it is in a certain way. Like, they just get so angry that it comes out. Like, they ooze anger and violence and frustration, which can be turned to your benefit if you're of a certain mindset, and they certainly are of that mindset. Fnatic actually got involved in the yelling and the screaming in the final here. They got into the Virtus Pro game. They were going at it. They were emotional. They were fueled by rage and passion, and they just exploded with loss.
With the regret.
Yeah, their explosion was a
didn't
regretful
go well.
one. You often regret the most passionate explosions.
That is so... I hope somebody puts that in cursive over like an Instagram photo or something.
Or a tattoo.
Oh, yes.
I regret my most passionate explosion, like right in the chest.
Awful.
Over the heart, but on the wrong side.
Just one spelling that's wrong. All right, over in the fighting game scene, because you guys ask us all the time about Super Smash Brothers. This latest edition of Super Smash Brothers received a big update this past week with Mew Two being added to the game and the all-powerful Diddy Kong getting a nerf. Meanwhile, in Mortal Kombat X, they experienced a rocky release, and they've already been patched for bugs and balance, and PC users couldn't download the game, and we talked all about Mortal Kombat last week. So let's talk about Super Smash Brothers first.
Let's do that. Mew Two coming into the fold. I thought it was interesting that Mew Two King, named after Mew Two, was not impressed with the character at first. He said, it's not so great. He's going to learn him.
Doesn't do him justice.
He's going to give him a shot. Yeah, it doesn't do me justice. My namesake deserves better. Goddamn Nintendo. But he's going to give it a shot. We'll see how it goes. You never know when a new character comes into the fold, how well he's going to play eventually, like down the line. You got to thoroughly feel out the process of the character. Really put your hands into the character.
And get it in there.
And wiggle your fingers around and then just really get a feel for him. As you do.
It's getting uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, it should. It has to before you really get a good feel for it.
Nothing is comfortable.
If you don't get uncomfortable, then you're not doing it right.
That's exactly right.
That's what I've been told anyway.
That's exactly.
I've had that whispered to my ear, actually. It was kind of weird the first time.
When you were playing Super Smash Brothers?
Sure.
Yes.
If you prefer.
That's what we called it.
Yeah, that's what we called it back in the day. Playing Super Smash Brothers, Yeah, you know what I mean. I think it's promising, though, that they actually allowed a nerf. Nintendo came back and made some balance changes because it shows more respect to the competitive community, I think. And Diddy Kong's still very much playable. He has the same tools in most cases, just that they're not quite so powerful, the tools. And that's the best way, I think, to nerf a character. You don't take away what makes them fun for people who enjoy playing the character. You just tone down the elements that are maybe too mechanically powerful. You allow for the same moves to exist, but just in a different way. You don't make them unfun. Because unfun's bad. Generally, you want to have fun when you play the game.
Right.
Right?
Just a little bit.
That's the goal. So let's maintain the fun factor while still trying to improve balance. And you never have perfect balance. Easy for me to say. If you had perfect balance, you just have a bunch of reuse in the fighting game. As soon as you add a Guile or a Cammy, you upset the balance inevitably because every single move is not the same anymore. So all you can do is try to make it as fun for everyone as you can at a competitive level and a casual level. And we'll see if that happens here. Mortal Kombat, already getting balance changes within a week. And other changes, like being able to download the game.
Being able to download the game is probably a good change. Good change.
Positive, very positive. But a good reception by the people who get involved with the game early on. So it looks strong. It looks like a good game competitively. It looks good. It's going to take some time, obviously, for us to get through it, really feel it out. But I think with ESL coming into the mix, adding some money to the pot, sweetening it a little bit, we are going to see some players jump in and immediately explore the competitive possibilities of the game. We'll see if it gets broken within a couple weeks. That's
right, but I think it's positive that even with that rocky launch, people are overwhelmingly positive about this game. So it's that good that you cannot download it. It can crash on your desktop, and then it's still good.
We've come a long way for NetherRealm in particular because they were just not so long ago releasing the shittiest Mortal Kombat games. Like, I can't even remember all the names before. Going back to Mythologies with the Sub-Zero and oh God.
Argue about it in the comments down below.
Yeah, please. Tell us your worst Mortal Kombat game. That's a good one.
That is a great one.
That's a hot debate right there because, you have some
least favorite Mortal Kombat
some great
game.
choices for worst Mortal Kombat game. But yeah, it's fun that they've gotten back in the competitive mix. I appreciate that. Really on purpose for the first time. MK3 is a good competitive game, but I don't think it was really built that way. Maybe it was. Maybe I'm a fool for their success.
Call Jared a fool in the comments down below. All right, that's it for this episode of the Leaderboard. We'll see you guys next week. GG, everyone.